The echo of their laughter still rings in my ears, a constant reminder of the day they took everything. The rain mixed with the crimson that stained the pavement, a grotesque painting of my shattered trust. They stood there, silhouetted against the warm glow of the house, toasting to my downfall. I was on my knees, broken, but the fire of vengeance was already igniting within me. If you have a sister who's always been your rock, subscribe now. My life had been carefully constructed, a fragile tower of dreams built on the foundation of family and career. For years, I poured my heart and soul into the family business, a tech startup my brother Mark had launched with the help of my then-boyfriend, David. My name is Stella, and I handled all the finances, the endless spreadsheets, the investor relations, the unglamorous but essential work that kept the company afloat. David, the charismatic frontman, secured the deals, while Mark, the coding genius, built the product. We were a team, or so I thought, bound by shared ambition and love. We were living the dream, attending tech conferences, working late into the night, fueled by passion and lukewarm coffee, celebrating every small victory as a monumental triumph. David and I were practically inseparable. We talked about marriage, about building a future together, a future intertwined with the success of the company. He would whisper sweet nothings in my ear about how lucky he was to have me, how my sharp mind and unwavering dedication were the secret ingredients to their success. Mark, ever the stoic brother, would nod in agreement, a rare smile gracing his lips. I trusted them implicitly, blindly, handing over my heart and my future without a second thought. Then came the whispers, the hushed conversations that ceased abruptly when I entered the room, the furtive glances exchanged across the dinner table. I tried to ignore them, dismissing them as paranoia fueled by stress. We were on the verge of a major breakthrough, a deal that would secure our future for years to come. The pressure was immense, and I was running on fumes. But the whispers grew louder, the glances more frequent, until they became an unbearable chorus of suspicion. One evening, I stayed late at the office, poring over the final details of the contract, ensuring every I was dotted and every T was crossed. As I was packing up, I overheard a conversation coming from Mark's office. It was Mark and David, their voices low and conspiratorial. Curiosity, or perhaps a premonition of dread, compelled me to listen. What I heard shattered my world. "She's just a paycheck, Mark," David said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Once we secure this deal, we don't need her anymore. We can buy her out, give her a measly severance package, and she'll be gone." Mark grunted in agreement. "She's too controlling, David, always questioning our decisions. We need someone more pliable." They continue to dissect my contributions, belittling my intelligence, mocking my dedication, reducing me to nothing more than a convenient asset to be discarded once I had outlived my usefulness. The person I trusted most was one of them. The words echoed in my mind, a chilling revelation that stripped away the carefully constructed facade of our shared dream. David, the man I loved, the man I had envisioned spending my life with, saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. Mark, my own brother, the one person I believed would always have my back, was complicit in this betrayal. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me, the walls closing in, the air thick with the stench of deceit. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to confront them with their treachery. But I didn't. I stood there, frozen, the weight of their words crushing me. I knew in that moment that my life had irrevocably changed. The trust was gone, the love was a lie, and the future I had so carefully planned was nothing more than a mirage. I quietly slipped away, unnoticed, the crimson already beginning to stain my heart. The rain started as I walked to my car, a fitting soundtrack to the destruction they had wrought. The drive home was a blur, the rain mirroring the turmoil inside me. I replayed their words over and over, each repetition twisting the knife deeper. Just a paycheck, too controlling, pliable. Was that all I was? A replaceable cog in their machine. The anger began to simmer, a slow burn beneath the surface of my shock and hurt. I pulled into the driveway, the house looming before me, once a symbol of our shared success, now a monument to their betrayal. I couldn't face them, not yet. I drove to Sarah's, my sister, my confidant, the one person who had always been my anchor. I needed her, desperately. I spilled everything, the overheard conversation, the shattered trust, the feeling of utter devastation.
Sarah listened patiently, her eyes blazing with a righteous fury that mirrored my own. "Those snakes," she hissed, her voice trembling with anger. "How could they do this to you?" She held me as I wept, offering words of comfort and support, reminding me of my strength, my intelligence, my worth. "You'll get through this, Stella," she said, her voice firm, "and you'll come out stronger on the other side. I know you will." Her words were a balm to my wounded soul, a spark of hope in the darkness. But even with her support, sleep evaded me that night. I tossed and turned, haunted by their faces, their words echoing in my mind. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, a gaping hole in my chest. I kept replaying every interaction with David, searching for clues, for signs that I had missed. Was it all a lie? Had he ever truly loved me? The questions swirled in my head, offering no answers, only fueling my torment.
The next morning, I forced myself to go to work. I had to act normal, to conceal the storm raging inside me. I plastered on a fake smile, trying to project an air of normalcy, but I could feel their eyes on me, watching, assessing. David greeted me with a hug, his touch now repulsive, his words of affection hollow and meaningless. "Hey, babe," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Everything okay? You seem a little off." I forced a smile. "Just tired," I said. "Late night." He squeezed my hand, his eyes lingering on mine a moment too long. "Well, don't overdo it," he said. "We need you sharp for this deal." The irony was almost unbearable. They needed me, yes, but only until I was no longer useful. The meeting with the investors was crucial, the culmination of months of hard work. I delivered the presentation flawlessly, my voice steady, my demeanor confident, despite the turmoil within. David and Mark beamed with pride, basking in the glow of my success. They had no idea that beneath the surface, a plan was beginning to form, a plan fueled by rage and a burning desire for justice. After the meeting, David pulled me aside. "You were amazing, Stella," he said, his voice sincere. "I don't know what we'd do without you." I met his gaze, my eyes betraying nothing of my true feelings. "You'd manage," I said, my voice flat. He seemed taken aback by my response. "What's wrong?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "Nothing," I said. "Just tired." Over the next few weeks, the tension escalated. I became increasingly withdrawn, distancing myself from David and Mark, avoiding their attempts at conversation. I started documenting everything, meticulously recording every meeting, every phone call, every email. I knew I needed evidence if I was going to expose their treachery. I also started quietly transferring funds out of the company account, diverting them into a separate account I had opened under a different name. It was a risky move, but I felt justified in protecting myself. They were planning to destroy me, to take everything I had worked for. I was simply leveling the playing field. One evening, I received a call from Sarah. "Stella," she said, her voice urgent, "I think you're in danger. I overheard Mark talking on the phone. He said something about taking care of the problem and making sure she doesn't cause any trouble." My blood ran cold. They were planning something drastic. I knew I had to act fast. The next day, I arrived at work early, before anyone else. I accessed Mark's computer, bypassing his security with ease. I had helped him set it up, after all. I found what I was looking for, a document outlining their plan to oust me from the company, a detailed strategy for discrediting me and seizing my shares. The document also included a list of my personal assets, including my bank accounts, my car, and my apartment. They were planning to take everything. I copied the document onto a flash drive, my hands trembling with rage. As I was leaving, I heard footsteps approaching. It was David. "Stella?" he said, his voice questioning. "What are you doing here so early?" I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I had been caught. "Just tired," I repeated, the words echoing hollowly in the sterile office air. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. David's eyes narrowed, his gaze piercing. He wasn't buying it. "What's that in your hand?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. I clutched the flash drive tighter, my knuckles white. Nothing," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. He took a step closer, his presence suddenly menacing. "Let me see it," he demanded, reaching for my hand. I recoiled, backing away from him. "Stay away from me," I said, my voice trembling. He lunged, grabbing my wrist. The flash drive slipped from my grasp and clattered to the floor. He bent to pick it up, his eyes gleaming with triumph.
"What is this?" he asked, plugging it into his computer. His face paled as he read the document, his eyes widening in disbelief. "You know," he said, his voice a strangled whisper. "You know everything." I didn't answer, my silence confirming his worst fears. He stood up, his face contorted with rage. "You little snake," he hissed, advancing towards me. "I should have known I couldn't trust you." He raised his hand, and I flinched, bracing for the impact. But it never came. Mark appeared in the doorway, his face grim. "David, stop," he said, his voice firm. David lowered his hand, his eyes still burning with anger. "She knows, Mark," he said. "She knows everything." Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know," he said. "We need to talk." The walk to Mark's office felt like a march to the gallows. The weight of their betrayal, the fear of what they might do, pressed down on me, suffocating me. I sat in the chair, my body rigid, my mind racing. David stood by the window, his back to me, his shoulders slumped. Mark sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable. "Stella," he began, his voice hesitant. "We didn't want it to come to this." "Didn't want it to come to this?" I repeated, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Really? Because it seems to me like you planned this pretty meticulously." Mark sighed again. "We made a mistake," he said. "We were just trying to protect the company." "Protect the company?" I scoffed. "Or protect your own interests?" David turned from the window, his eyes pleading. "Stella, please," he said. "We can fix this. We can work this out." "Fix this?" I said, my voice rising. "There's nothing to fix. You betrayed me. You lied to me. You tried to destroy me." I stood up, my body shaking with anger. "I'm done," I said. "I'm done with this company. I'm done with you." I turned to leave, but Mark stopped me. "Stella, wait," he said. "You can't just walk away. You're a valuable asset to this company."
I was a valuable asset, I corrected him. Now I'm just a liability. I walked out of the office, leaving them standing there, their faces etched with guilt and regret. But their regret meant nothing to me. The damage was done. As I drove away, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The weight of the secret, the burden of their betrayal, had been lifted. I was free. But the freedom came at a price. I had lost everything. My job, my boyfriend, my brother, my future. I was alone, adrift, with no idea what to do next. I spent the next few days in a haze of grief and anger. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't stop replaying the events in my head. I felt like I was drowning, sinking deeper and deeper into a sea of despair. One evening, as I was scrolling through social media, I saw a picture of David and Mark, toasting to their success at a fancy restaurant. The sight of their smug faces sent a jolt of rage through me. I couldn't let them get away with this. I couldn't let them win. I had to fight back. But how? I was just one person against two powerful and ruthless men. I had no money, no resources, no allies. Or so I thought. Then I remembered Sarah, my sister, my rock, the one person who had always believed in me. I called her, my voice trembling. "Sarah," I said, "I need your help." And just like she always has, she was there. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah helped me gather evidence, build my case, and develop a plan. We spent hours poring over documents, analyzing their weaknesses, and identifying their vulnerabilities. I discovered that David had a gambling problem, a secret he had desperately tried to conceal. He was deeply in debt, owing money to some very dangerous people. I also learned that Mark had been siphoning money from the company for years, using it to fund his lavish lifestyle. They were both vulnerable, both hiding secrets that could destroy them, and I was going to expose them. The anger that had consumed me began to morph into something else, a cold, calculating determination. I was no longer a victim. I was a planner. I would use their own weaknesses against them, turning their treachery into their downfall. The fire of vengeance burned bright within me, fueling my resolve. They thought they had broken me. They thought they had won, but they were wrong. The game was just beginning. They had made a grave mistake when they betrayed me. They had underestimated my strength, my intelligence, and my capacity for revenge. And they were about to pay the price. I smiled,
a slow, deliberate smile that sent a chill down my spine. The day they tried to destroy me was the day they sealed their own fate. My revenge was coming, and it would be glorious.
I smiled. I played their game, nodding along to their hollow apologies, acting the part of the wounded, recovering partner. But beneath the surface, I was recording everything. Every conversation, every meeting, every email, meticulously documented and backed up to a secure, encrypted server. Sarah had put me in touch with a former forensic accountant, a woman named Emily, who specialized in uncovering financial crimes. Emily was a godsend, a quiet, unassuming genius who could sniff out fraud like a bloodhound. Together, we spent hours poring over the company's financial records, tracing the flow of money, uncovering hidden accounts and shell corporations. It was a painstaking process, but Emily's expertise was invaluable. She helped me identify the exact accounts Mark was using to siphon funds and quantified the total amount he had stolen. I also discovered that David's gambling debts were far more extensive than I had imagined, reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. He was desperate, vulnerable, and easily manipulated. One afternoon, David came to my apartment, unannounced. He looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. "Stella, we need to talk," he said, his voice pleading. I hesitated, then reluctantly let him in. He launched into a rambling apology, begging for my forgiveness, promising to make things right. He claimed that Mark had pressured him into betraying me, that he had been afraid of losing his job. I listened patiently, my face betraying nothing. I knew he was lying, but I needed him to keep talking. As he spoke, I discreetly activated the voice recorder on my phone, capturing every word. He confessed to his role in the plan to oust me, admitting that he had helped Mark draft the document outlining their strategy. He even revealed the name of the lawyer they had consulted, the one who had advised them on how to legally seize my shares. It was all I needed. After he left, I immediately sent the recording to Emily. She analyzed it, extracting the key phrases and identifying the legal loopholes they had exploited. She also flagged the lawyer's name, noting that he had a history of representing companies involved in shady dealings. The next few weeks were a delicate dance. I continued to play the part of the forgiving partner, attending meetings, participating in discussions, and acting as if nothing had happened. But behind the scenes, I was working tirelessly to build my case. I contacted the investors who had attended the meeting where I delivered the presentation, the one David and Mark had been so eager to secure. I explained to them that I was considering leaving the company and offered them a chance to invest in a new venture I was planning to launch. They were intrigued, impressed by my vision and my track record. I knew that if I could convince them to pull their investment from our company, it would be a devastating blow to David and Mark. I also reached out to a journalist I knew, a woman named Maria, who specialized in investigative reporting. I told her that I had uncovered evidence of financial impropriety at my company and offered her an exclusive story. She was immediately interested, eager to expose the truth. I provided her with copies of the financial records, the emails, and the voice recordings, trusting her to handle the information with discretion. As the day of reckoning drew closer, the tension became almost unbearable. David and Mark grew increasingly suspicious, sensing that something was amiss. They started watching me more closely, questioning my motives and scrutinizing my actions. One evening, Mark confronted me in the office, his face etched with concern. "Stella, what's going on?" he asked. "You've been acting strange lately. Are you planning something?" I met his gaze, my face betraying nothing. "Of course not, Mark," I said. "I'm just tired. I need a vacation." He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes, but he couldn't prove anything. I knew that time was running out. I had to act fast before they discovered my plan. I finalized the arrangements with Maria, scheduling the publication of her article for the following week. I also contacted the investors, arranging a meeting to discuss my new venture. Everything was in place. The trap was set. All that was left was to spring it. I went home that night, a sense of anticipation building within me. I knew that the next few days would be the most crucial of my life. Everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed was riding on this. But I was ready. I was prepared to face whatever came my way. I had a plan, and I was going to see it through, no matter the cost. They thought they could destroy me, but they were wrong. I was stronger than they ever imagined, and I was about to unleash my revenge. The pieces were falling into place, each one clicking into position with a satisfying finality.
David's gambling addiction, fueled by Mark's embezzlement, was their shared Achilles heel. They thought they were untouchable, masters of their domain, but they were just puppets dancing on strings of greed and desperation. Their biggest weakness wasn't their dishonesty or their ruthlessness, it was their arrogance, the unshakable belief that they were smarter than everyone else. I knew the investors' meeting would be the linchpin. If I could get them to pull out, the whole house of cards would collapse. I spent hours crafting my presentation, highlighting the risks associated with the company, subtly planting seeds of doubt about its long-term viability. I didn't outright accuse David and Mark of any wrongdoing, but I made it clear that I had serious concerns about the company's direction and financial stability. I hinted at new opportunities, suggesting that their money could be better utilized elsewhere.
The meeting was scheduled for Friday morning, a week after my confrontation with David in the office. I could feel their eyes on me the entire week, burning into the back of my head. It was paranoia. The day arrived with the oppressive weight of a pending storm. I woke up before dawn, my stomach churning with anxiety. Every possible scenario played in my head, each one ending in either triumph or disaster. I showered, dressed in a sharp business suit, and applied my makeup with meticulous care. I needed to project an image of confidence and control, even though I was terrified. As I drove to the meeting, I rehearsed my presentation in my head, fine-tuning every word, every gesture. I knew that this was my one shot, my only chance to take them down. The investors were already seated when I arrived, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. David and Mark were there as well, their expressions tight and wary. I greeted everyone with a warm smile, trying to project an air of calm confidence. I launched into my presentation, my voice steady and assured. I presented my concerns about the company's direction, highlighting the risks and uncertainties that lay ahead. I subtly implied that David and Mark were not being entirely transparent, hinting at financial irregularities and questionable business decisions. I could see the investors' faces changing as I spoke, their initial skepticism giving way to concern. David and Mark squirmed in their seats, their faces growing increasingly pale. They tried to interrupt, to defend themselves, but I cut them off, politely but firmly. I was in control, and I wasn't about to let them derail my plan. After the presentation, I opened the floor to questions. The investors peppered me with inquiries, probing my concerns, seeking clarification on my points. I answered each question with precision and candor, carefully avoiding any direct accusations. I simply presented the facts, allowing them to draw their own conclusions. As the meeting progressed, I could feel the momentum shifting in my favor. The investors were clearly losing confidence in David and Mark, their trust eroding with each passing minute. Finally, one of the investors spoke up, his voice grave. "Stella," he said, "are you suggesting that there may be something wrong with the company's finances?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I have some concerns," I said, "and I believe that further investigation is warranted." David and Mark exploded, leaping to their feet, their faces contorted with rage. They accused me of lying, of sabotaging the company, of trying to steal their investors. The room erupted into chaos, voices rising in anger and confusion. I remained calm and composed, allowing them to rant and rave. I knew that their outburst was a sign of desperation, a last-ditch attempt to salvage the situation. Then, as if on cue, my phone rang. It was Maria, the journalist. I answered it, putting it on speakerphone. "Stella," she said, her voice clear and strong, "the article is live. It's on every major news website." A hush fell over the room as everyone turned to look at me. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent a chill down David and Mark's spines. The exact day they tried to end me, I exposed the truth for the world to see. The investors gasped, their eyes wide with shock and disbelief. David and Mark stood frozen, their faces ashen. The game was over, but the true reckoning was just beginning. The article hit like a nuclear bomb. Headlines screamed about corporate fraud, embezzlement, and insider trading. Maria had meticulously laid out all the evidence I had provided, painting a devastating portrait of David and Mark's greed and corruption. The article detailed David's spiraling gambling debts, exposing his desperation and vulnerability. It revealed Mark's elaborate scheme to siphon money from the company, documenting the hidden accounts, the shell corporations, and the lavish expenses he had funded with stolen funds. The investors were stunned, their faces a mixture of shock, disbelief, and anger. They immediately demanded an explanation from David and Mark, who stammered and sputtered, desperately trying to deny the allegations. but the evidence was overwhelming, the facts irrefutable. Their carefully constructed facade of success and respectability crumbled before their eyes, revealing the ugly truth beneath. One by one, the investors announced their intention to withdraw their funding, their voices cold and unforgiving. The company's stock price plummeted, wiping out millions of dollars in value. David and Mark's empire was collapsing, their dreams turning to ash. The room was silent, save for Mark's heavy breathing and David's nervous cough. The fallout was swift and brutal. Within hours, David and Mark were suspended from their positions, pending an internal investigation. The lawyer they had consulted, the one who had advised them on how to seize my shares, was disbarred, his reputation ruined. The company's board of directors launched an independent audit, vowing to uncover the full extent of the fraud. Law enforcement agencies opened criminal investigations, preparing to file charges against David and Mark. Their careers were over, their reputations destroyed, their futures uncertain. They had lost everything, their jobs, their money, their status, their freedom. I watched it all unfold from a distance, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. I saw pictures of David leaving his mansion, his face pale and drawn, his eyes filled with despair. I read reports of Mark's assets being frozen, his lavish lifestyle abruptly curtailed. I knew that they were suffering, that they were paying the price for their treachery. But their pain didn't bring me joy. It didn't fill the void they had created in my life.
It simply affirmed that justice had been served. The weight on my chest lessened. A few days later, I received a call from Sarah. "It's over, Stella," she said, her voice filled with relief. "They're gone. You did it." I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. It was over. I had faced my demons, I had fought back, and I had won. But the victory felt hollow, bittersweet. I had achieved my revenge, but at what cost? I had lost so much in the process. My job, my boyfriend, my brother, my peace of mind. I had become someone I didn't recognize, a vengeful, calculating woman consumed by anger. I had to find a way to move on, to heal, to rebuild my life. I resigned from the company, severing all ties with David and Mark. I launched my own venture, a new company built on integrity, transparency, and trust. I surrounded myself with people who believed in me, who supported my vision, who valued my honesty. I found new investors, people who were willing to take a chance on me, who saw my potential. I started dating again, finding someone who appreciated my strength, who respected my boundaries, who loved me for who I was. I even reconciled with my brother, who finally understood the truth about David and Mark. He apologized for doubting me, for betraying my trust. I forgave him, knowing that he had been manipulated, that he had been a victim of their deceit. One afternoon, I was walking down the street when I saw David. He looked gaunt, his clothes were rumpled, and his eyes were hollow. He was a shadow of his former self. He saw me too, and his face contorted with a mixture of shame and regret. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "Don't," I said, my voice cold and hard. "There's nothing you can say that will change anything." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, his head bowed in defeat. I didn't feel any satisfaction, any triumph. I just felt a profound sense of sadness. He was a broken man, his life ruined by his own choices. I realized then that revenge wasn't the answer. It didn't heal the wounds, it didn't bring closure, it didn't make me whole. It simply perpetuated the cycle of pain and suffering. They lost everything. I just smiled, not because I was happy about their misfortune, but because I was finally free. Free from their lies, their manipulation, their betrayal. Free to live my life on my own terms, to pursue my own dreams, to find my own happiness. Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. It is the process of reclaiming what was taken from you. But it's not the end. It's only the beginning. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.